Hello and welcome to 4am Art. So in this video I'm going to show you how to draw this complicated looking orchid, and we'll be using a Pilot G-Tech 0.3 millimeter pen on Canson mixed media paper. So as we draw this, I'm going to basically be doing a line drawing first, and I'm going to be going point to point, starting with the central section of the flower first. Now, as I draw this, remember, don't worry about trying to make things perfect, but you'll want to be as accurate as possible. You may want to start with a pencil first, but here I'm just going to use a pen. And remember, our lines are going to show not just the shape of, say, the petals, but we're also going to try to convey colors, detail patterns, overlapping structures, etc., to try to make it as realistic as possible. Now, when I say point to point, like as I draw this front petal, I'm going to be looking at the direction of it. I'm going to look at the size of it compared to the petal I already drew up in the upper left. I'm also going to be looking at the negative shapes, not just the positive shapes. All of these things are going to help me be more accurate with my drawing. But like I said, you may want to start with a pencil first, because then you can always erase and redraw things. We're not going to be trying to be super accurate, as I said, so feel free to change things around if the orientation of the leaf looks a little weird, or it would look better in a different position. Feel free to experiment. So as I usually do, I'll start with drawing all the front structures first. Then I don't have to worry about the overlapping parts that are more in the background. Once I get the front structures in, it's so much easier to put in the petals, say, that are in the back, like this one right here. Make sure that your lines are not stiff looking. There's always going to be a lot of curved lines. Make the leaves look like they're as natural as possible, essentially. So right now this is looking like just a simple line drawing, no shadows or anything. But because there's so many structures here, sometimes it's a little difficult to make sense of things. So we'll be adding some shading here, especially when there's so many things that are overlapping. So here I'm going to start shading using hatch lines, which are basically just parallel lines, fairly evenly spaced. And this immediately sets this particular petal towards the background. Take your time here. Now you could shade any different ways. I'm going to use hatch lines primarily, and all going in the same direction. And to make darker tones, I just go over it with another set of hatch lines. And this will give it more dimension, give you different shades, different tones. And again, like here's another petal that's behind, so I'll kind of put it in the background. Now, it's not just to put things in the background, but you also want to show the structure of the petal. There will be shading and different shadows for each petal as well. And this will give it more shape. It'll show the surface direction. And you may also use shading to convey different colors. So if there's a darker color, you may want to shade those parts with some hatch lines, and that would indicate like a darker color. Alright, so like right here would be more of like a surface shading, show that it's curved. And finally I'm putting in the stem, which of course is going towards the back. Again, I'm putting in some hatch lines. Now I'm going ahead with using a Uniball micro pen just to give it a little bit more interest as far as the line width. You don't want to necessarily just use a single line width. It depends on what you want. So this is just a little bit wider than that first pen, and I'm just outlining just to make it a little bit more interesting and kind of set off the petals, especially towards the front, a little bit more than the ones in the back. I'm back to my original pen, and here I'm just finishing off some of the details. And for the ones that I'm making a little bit thicker, I can also still use that same pen. Now we could have stopped right there, but what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take a pencil and add some mid-tones, a little bit more shading this time with this pencil. And again, I'm doing this just because it's a little bit of a complicated flower, and to me it seemed like it was lacking definition. So now I'm using the pencil to add more shading, give it more dimensionality, especially with the petals. And here I'm going all sorts of different directions just to be able to put in the gradients that I want. Of course, the shadow areas are going to be darker. This doesn't mean that our initial hatch lines are no longer useful. They are, and they give another dimension to our drawing, different character. So here I'm assuming that the light is coming from the upper left. So of course the parts that are in the back are going to be a darker color, kind of sets it back. But we're also going to be shading where there's darker tones, the shadows. And again, just like the pen, you could use this to add the details on the petal. Notice that I had interrupted lines on the petals, and a lot of these orchids have that kind of pattern of a different color on the petal. So if you definitely feel free to experiment with how you want the drawing to look. Everyone has their own preference on what looks good to them. So definitely feel free to try different ways. As I mentioned, we could have left this as a simple pen only drawing, line drawing, but the pencil just gives it a different dimension. So I hope you found this video useful, and please, if so, please like, share, and subscribe for more videos that are coming. Get you to draw a little better. Take care.